thank God for this great blessing that we have to be with you, wherever you are, in this beautiful land of Guyana, in the riverine area, in the interior, in the coastline, wherever, in the Caribbean and further field. We thank God that you're with us week after week. And we pray that the blessings of God will fall upon you and your family as you share with us. Stay tuned as we share from the Word of God. Be blessed.
This evening we want to continue our discussion on the topic agreement. We want to take this opportunity to encourage families, communities to agree to give children a good future, a good education. And even as we attempt to do this, the focus must not just be on the academics, but also on those values that are enduring, such as love, respect, hard work. So in this education month that is being celebrated under the theme Transforming Classroom for the 21st Century, let us all ensure that our children are given the opportunity to grow and to develop. So in the midst of turbulence, hostility, poverty, adversity, uncertainty, let us ensure that we agree. Gentlemen.
A couple of years ago, I called one of my many teachers to tell her thanks for saving me from going to the Georgetown prison by the lashes that she gave. The reason why I really called her is because I discovered that she taught not only from the textbook, the prescribed textbook, but she taught life values and life skills. For the 6 hours or so that she had me in her class during the course of the week, 5 days a week, she saw some traits in me, perhaps that my parents did not observe. And she was able to hone some of those skills and values at an early age, which in the main, I think are responsible for where I am now. So I called her to say, thanks, miss, thanks for the lashes. I mean, at times they were, I think most of us can testify to that, they were extremely hot, and they sometimes struck between your senses and your non-senses and helped, you know, to really form the character. So I want to say a special thanks to the teachers out there and to encourage them to continue to do an excellent job.
You know, for most of us who have succeeded, there was someone who agreed to make an investment in our life. Sometimes we don't stop to recognize the work, but they made some significant investment, and they could have only done so by setting their mind to do so and held on to that position. I don't think, for example, I had been an angel, and there are lots of times I set my mind to do contrary to what was required. But there were folks who deliberately, in the home, in the community, who deliberately ensured we refuse to allow you to go overboard. And so today I say hats off to them. And I say to every parent, to every big brother, to every big sister, set your mind to come into agreement with the success of your siblings, with your children, the children of the community, so that they will be able to succeed. And don't just set your mind. Make sure you hold on to that position that you have taken.
There was an unwritten agreement many years ago, or especially the time when I was growing up, an unwritten agreement between parents, teachers, and the community, even those who were in charge or who influenced the public and private sector. There was an unwritten agreement. The childhood should be a period of innocence, a period of learning, a period of investment, and therefore, even though I don't think they kept many meetings about this fact, you could see that the structures around us supported this kind of learning. the structure around us demanded that we pay attention to our schoolwork. And we are saying this because if we are going to go ahead in the 21st century, we need to be able to benefit again from those valuable structures that existed during those times. And we need to encourage all to come on board. I could have been an aviator. I remember I went to my teacher. She was marking books, looking and note-taking at the, after lunch one day. And my exercise book had something called dog ears. On each page, the end was folded, and I saw my book sail right through the window, and the school was next to a graveyard, and went through the window sailing, and I stood there dumbstruck. First I thought Miss had made my book into a plane, and I saw it sailing, and I retrieved my book with great trepidation, because in those days we were afraid to go into the cemetery. But right there in the cemetery, as I was coming out, I figured out why my book became a plane, and sorted it out from there on, you know, pressing out the end of each page. So it is important. We have reduced perhaps teaching and learning in our classrooms now to just academic. I think that's something is wrong there. We need to be able to instill again life skills, values. We need to be able, teachers must be able to model and be able to demand not just learning of Shakespeare and Pythagoras, but must be able to demand and be able to instruct. Must be role models again, and children will be able to follow.
I like the concept of that unwritten agreement. Somehow between parents, teachers, people in the community. You know, I remember as a child growing up, I would hear my mom saying, I didn't go far in school, but I want to ensure that my children do well. And I do recall as children we would laugh at the times when she would say, well, meaning of book sense, but we got common sense. And I remember studying several nights. She would get up and ensure that you get a glass of milk, just to ensure that, you know, she's there with you. I remember Mr. Dover. He's now a pastor down the street, and every time I pass, he would say, "Good morning, Dr. Paul." And so those people in the community, I saw him the other day, and I said to him, well, I'm on my way there. And he laughed. So indeed, that unwritten agreement is somehow they're agreeing. You might not see them talking to each other, but they're just there ensuring that they encourage you along the way. So hats off again to all those people who continue to encourage young people to do well.
Proverbs 22:6 reminds us that we should train up a child in the way that he should go, and that when he's old, he will not depart from it. And this speaks of training with a purpose. And even as we celebrate Education Month, and we applaud the teachers and the parents who are making a conscious effort to contribute to the upkeep of their children, you know, education, and getting them to that place where they can be productive citizens of this beautiful country in which we live in. We must remember, it's not just about giving them the material things, but the emotional support that is needed, the financial support that is needed. And I strongly believe, you know, there must be a level playing field, because everyone is not at the same point. And there are those who are at greater advantage than others. But we want to encourage those parents who might be faced with adversity. Don't give up. Hold fast. Remember, there's a God who is concerned, and you dedicate yourself to ensuring that your children attend school, you ensure that you do the best you can do for your children so that they can come out being excellent in whatever they do.
We cannot overemphasize the fact that partnership is so critical to this process. If we're going to have our children perform well, we need to see more parents, behaving like the words of Solomon, what Solomon noted when he spoke about his father. And in Proverbs 4, and you quoted from Proverbs 4, verses 5 and 6, this is what he was told, get wisdom, get understanding. Forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. So this kind of information must then be enhanced in the school system also, because we're saying it is not just, we're not just dealing with the academics, but also with values and those kinds of attitudes that will really cause our children to grow and to develop. And therefore, we need partnership in this entire process if we're going to be effective. I think we established that from the beginning, that we need partnership we need parents, teachers, and members of the community, We'll call children Dr. Paul and so on again, and so give them that kind of encouragement that they need to really advance in life.
We talk about partnerships, and I recall growing up as a youngster where your parents would take you back to the teacher. They had a man by the name of Mr. Rudder, and when they took you back there, Mr. Rudder would administer punishment or lashes, and you were kept in line. And we talk about this unwritten agreement and the code that was there, and sometimes they didn't speak, but every person in that community would look out for you. And so when you did anything on the road, you had to look around, because you never knew who was passing and would report to your parents. And the thing about it, in those times, we would play on the road, but we would play with one eye up, and one eye on the cricket ball. And I remember one time playing on the road, and I saw this old man, and I ran to the gutter and lay flat in the gutter. And that man parked his bicycle, came, picked me up, and says, "Oh, this is what you're doing." Took me back to the school, and the teacher administered lashes. I couldn't go home to say to my parents that this is what happened, because that would have started another thing. But we're talking about the values, and sometimes we miss the mark. In Deuteronomy, God was talking to the children of Israel, and he said, impress them upon your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk. These values was to be taught every single time, every day, when you sit, when you walk, wherever you go. Impress them upon the hearts of your children so that they would have these values to share. And it would last them, it was something that was lasting a lifetime. This was not just for short time. Sometimes we teach for short time, but God wants us to teach for something that will be lasting, long time. And it was so important that we share these values and help our young people so that they could become the best in their field.
The rod of correction in those days worked very well. And it's a case whereby we have to be very careful not to think with structures that delivered unto us good results. There's a difference between abuse and correction. And if I ask most persons, everyone in this panel, including myself, we would have benefited from the rod of correction so many times over. And we didn't die. As a matter of fact, that means of communicating to us really helped us to really help those values to be reinforced in our lives. And so we were able to be better citizens. So we have to be very careful. I know we're in an environment where lots of things are happening, but we have to be very careful that we continue to agree that this means of delivering or helping to reinforce values this is upkept.
Well, the liberals in our midst, of course, they're having a field day. Everything that they can shake and they can remove, all the time tested principles and practices, they're trying to remove them. And they have an enabling environment to be able to do that. That's the direction in which the world is going. The solution is, some folks feel, and thank God this is not so in this country, you give people more rights. You have lots of problems in some countries with guns, and they respond by giving folk greater opportunity to buy guns and to be able to protect their rights. And the liberals in our midst, they have a major problem with corporal punishment, and so they want to strike it off. And we will be able to measure, the social scientists in our midst will be able to measure and see the impact of those things on society over time. When we refer to the unwritten agreement, Solomon spoke about his father in Proverbs 4, and he said, I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. And he said, he also taught me and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words and keep my commandments and live. In Proverbs 4 and verse 3, the whole notion of partnership between the child and his or her parents, very, very powerful. And fathers, you have a pivotal, a foundational role to perform. And Solomon, this guy's father, was commander-in-chief of the army. He was what the British would call the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He was in charge of all foreign accounts. He was the chief musician. He was king. He was the political head. Yet he found time, given all of these different things, he was also a tremendous musician. He found time to teach his son when his son was still small. And so I guess what we are saying today is that you may have a pressing job or pressing assignments. You must still intentionally find time as a father, as a man, to teach and to interact and to engage with your children. We should stop providing excuses. So partnership is not the only element, but we want to encourage parents in the face of poverty. It's difficult for a child to learn if that child is hungry. We are grateful to God for lots of the safety nets we have around, but we must bring this on board, and we have to find a way to deliver material support to children who come from very poor families. Because if we're going to help them to learn, we have to they must have a good meal every single day. And we need to work, we need to find ways to make this happen. So we need to be able to be creative enough to be able to deliver this. There are some institutions that are ready to deliver, but they lack the ability to. And there are some whose hearts are willing to give. So we need to be able to find and establish a partnership where we can deliver these meals to wanting and needy families in our respective communities.
I also want to support what you just said. I think to recall reading some research that was done recently where it showed, I think the comparative analysis was between developed and developing country, where they showed that people who were poor, their IQ or intelligence quotient, I think was reduced by, 13% because of poverty, as they contemplated such things as what they were going to eat the following day, what they were going to wear. Whereas when they compared with persons in better off society, they found that there was not that drastic reduction. So I think the point here is that we as families, communities, and nation as a whole, if we're going to support and to ensure that those children do well, we need to find some way to provide food for them. I know sometimes we often want to go for the fast food. Sometimes you examine, you look at some children lunch kit and you see things that are not energy giving or not wholesome food. Those things I refer to, we often see them in those plastic bags, those bottled drink and all of that. They are not really wholesome. So we need to find a way whereby we can provide wholesome food, which will provide brain power for those children. Because I think in their formative years, they really need that foundation, and they really need that nutritional value to be put in their lives so that they can do well in later days. If not, then we will reap the benefits that I show that this nation does not deserve.
I believe that the community partnership is so necessary to deal with poverty and to enable families and children to succeed. A few days ago, I was speaking with a 67-year-old woman, and she was saying to me, I was boiling some guava jam. I said, guava jam? She said, I do that every time the term begins. I believe I'm an expert at guava jam. So I said, what do you do with guava jam? She said, there are mothers in my community who have young children going to school, and I would say to them, you just get the bread, I will provide the jam. So she boils jam and she distributes it to the mothers in the community. And I said, hats off to her, because she was actually partnering with the parent to ensure that the child gets something substantial to eat. I want to say that life is never easy. It is always turbulent. But somebody has to make up your mind that I will give you the tools to go through. And so I pray that from parents to community leaders to even leaders in the state, let us ensure that our children have a chance to succeed.
I support you on that. And we pointed out some areas we spoke of that we should agree in the midst of. We talk about turbulence and hostility, adversity, poverty, and so on. And we want to urge every parent out there to fight the good fight. There's a tendency sometimes, because of all the circumstances and the different factors that might be coming against us, for us to give up. But tough times don't last, but tough people do. And sometimes when you endure, you actually see the benefit of your endurance. And that's why I like the Apostle Paul, who said, do not become weary in well doing. And sometimes in fighting you can become weary and you want to give up. But there's a season, that will come, and you'll see. I've seen parents who are extremely poor, but they said to themselves, look, we're going to, come together and ensure that these children go through. And to tell you the truth, some of those children, they in turn became the deliverer of those families because of, the input and the efforts that that were made to see those children actually succeed. So I want to urge every parent, never mind where you come from. You might come from wherever. You might come from an area where people, show no respect. But tell you the truth, if you continue to fight, respect will come your way.
What I find most discouraging and is very insidious is the notion of some parents, for the want of a better word, they do not believe in their children.
Yeah.
They somehow come to the conclusion that this child will not do well. To me, that's a cop-out. That is, it's a miserable posture. And you must believe in your child. You see, if you don't believe, you will not prepare.
It's true.
If you don't believe that this child has got potential, I overheard when I was about to write an examination called CP, College of Preceptors. My teacher, Mr. Tom, asked to see my mother. And I overheard, in those days, children, they had a saying, children Must be seen, could be seen and not heard, something to that effect. So I had to stand at an angle at the desk, looking away from these two adults as they were having a conversation. And I heard Mr. Tom say to my mother, beg, borrow. I was surprised with the last one, or thief the money. The boy will do well. Now, I was surprised that Mr. Tom would make such a statement. But he was right. He saw something. And he drove my mother. She got the money. I am sure she didn't do the last one. But I think he was being extremely dramatic and persuasive in terms of his analysis. You must, parents, don't look at your circumstances and say, this child is not going to do well. Believe in the tremendous possibility and potential God has placed within each child. You can't turn away from your own. It might be rough, it might be difficult, but trust God to pull the best out of that boy or girl, wherever you live, wherever you come from. And by the grace of God, I'm sure they're going to do well.
The best partnership for you to embrace is not a partnership, the partnership that we know exists in this land. But the best partnership is to really partner with God. Once you partner with God, I believe the other things will really flow and really fall into place. Here, Psalm 78, reading from verse 2, it says, I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from our children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he had done for us. Partner with God.
We need to partner. We need partnership first, vertically. We need to develop that kind of relationship. And then we need to partner horizontally. When we get that kind of partnership, we will have a successful not month, but years. God bless you.
We thank you for being part of Choices. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly for any of our regular weekly services. I am Celicia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless.